you said you had to kind of let go of an identity.
Yeah,
What did you have to let go of? And then what did you end up claiming in this
such a good
big
question.
shift?
Yeah, I think a lot of my identity was, being at the agency, running a team, working on these brands, being, very connected in the industry, you know, going to New York and seeing all the reporters. I mean, it was just, the ecosystem of having grown up at big agencies and knowing that I had a place there and I had a reputation there. And, this the safety net of that and that there's gonna be a job next year and, a lot of that has changed. But it's who I was. When I worked at DDB, I was DDB. I was the spokesperson. I felt like I was an embodiment. When Leo Burnett, like
Mhm.
I felt like it was my responsibility, that brand. And so to leave that for something no one's ever heard of, and again, sit on my couch in COVID and try to build a business with a logo and two friends was really scary.
Life's too short for bad coffee or bad leadership. I'm Lindsay Yellin, executive leadership coach, coffee enthusiast, and former ad VP turned believer in leading from a place of possibility. On Unfiltered Leadership, we skip the buzzwords and dig into the messy, human, and powerful side of leadership with real conversations and practical takeaways. Now grab your mug. Let's dive in. Hi, Amy. Welcome to Unfiltered Leadership. I have been looking forward to this day for way too long.
Me too. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled that you're doing this. You've taught me a lot about great conversations and getting into the crevices of leadership. So, yeah, really excited to be here today.
And what's in your cup today? Do you have a special mug with you that you brought with you?
Oh my gosh, I forgot it. I just finished my mug of midday probiotic tea with a scoop of creatine,
Oh my
which you
God,
don't do for the
fancy.
taste, but you do for the strength. And yeah, so I just finished that up and I'm feeling pretty good.
I feel like creatine's like the new thing. I see it everywhere. I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out what I'm supposed to do with creatine, but now you've motivated me. I need to
Yeah.
start.
Go get it. It's never too early and we'll never know if it worked, just like every supplement, but might as well try.
Might as well try until we lose, at least for me, I lose the motivation and the
Yep.
habit and then it falls off. So today I brought with me this mug from an artist from called Capricorn, not Capricorn, what is it? Carved. Oh God, of course. Now I just forgot. But she makes these really beautiful, sometimes like geometric, different like colored
Mm.
mugs. And I was trying to grab a mug that like makes me think of the person that I'm going to be talking with
Mm.
or my
Oh,
mood. And to me, this mug, I was like, it's very like sophisticated, yet it's like fun and inviting, yet also really grounded, which is, I feel like you are like such like you're such a presence when you walk into a room that like your energy just speaks for itself that everyone's like, "Oh, she seems awesome and she knows what the hell she's doing." But then also you're super authentic and open and always so grounded and kind. And so this mug reminded me of you.
well, that is so lovely. Thank you. I mean,
You're
if
welcome.
this was the totality of the podcast, I'm in. I love it.
And
Thanks, Lindsay.
complete. Um, and actually, where first I want to give a little history. You and I met when working at our respective publicist agencies, working on
Yeah,
KitchenAid.
yeah,
And I remember feeling so, um, honored because we kind of worked together not expectedly. I think you jumped into an account because some
yes,
leadership had left and they needed your support. And then we ended up partnering on a lot of work for that agency and a friendship kind of blossomed. I remember it being like, wow, this woman is so impressive and she is so giving me so much wisdom and I get to have all this time with her. I am so
oh,
grateful. And yeah, I feel like I try to remind leaders a lot to give their gratitude or like not to waste moments when to tell people how they feel and also what they've done for them
yeah,
because the worst thing is to go through life and not let people know what impact they have on others. And
yeah,
so I did want to start our conversation by giving you some flowers by telling you that I would not be here today if it was not for you. And I also want the leaders and listeners to know that. So Amy was my first true client, but first, especially executive client. And you trusted me and you took a chance on hiring me to be your coach right as I was getting started and still in the agency world. And I got to share such a beautiful space with you through some exploration and coaching. And honestly, I learned so much from you, but because of you and then your generosity to refer me to other people is really what got my business off the ground
Mm, it's
and my
lovely.
confidence as a coach.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I saw you in action with the clients, and you had a huge leadership role, and you helped me come in and understand that client and all the dynamics. I saw you that you understood the business. And then, you're such an empath and you're such a, you know, uh, organizational mind that I just really believed that, and you were fresh from all your training. So I was like, okay, she can bring me out knowing what I'm wrestling with because it's, my role in the agency, but
Mhm,
then also, help me find what I really wanted to do and the confidence to go do what I ultimately did. And I remember it would be like Saturday mornings and I would put my AirPods in and basically go for a walk for an hour and
mhm.
we would talk. And invariably, like, there would be a tear here or there as you made me go kind of uncover something, but I would come back and I just felt lighter. My husband, like, would acknowledge that I felt lighter, I looked lighter, and, that was forever really important to me, and
Mm,
so I'm glad it's a two-way street.
absolutely, I'm
Yeah.
so grateful for you and all you taught me and all the doors you opened for me, and I can you back up and maybe share a bit about your journey, your career journey, your leadership journey, and what was that kinda moment where you really took a huge risk and leap to follow your dream?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I had always grown up doing PR for ad agencies and had gone from DDB to Leo Burnett and then was asked to take on the MSL Chicago role, which was great. Having a P&L, I was like, okay, I'm getting into my 40s. I should have a P&L. I was very ambitious. I always am ambitious.
Mhm,
And I did that for 4 years. And then there were just changes that didn't feel like what I brought was still what was required. And I was in a role that didn't really have P&L responsibilities, which if you've been there, it's good to be able to control the money.
mhm,
And I tried to sort of stand up a practice around the sort of startups, lower paying clients, but tomorrow's brands, not yesterday's. And the money didn't work really. It just, I could go get a farmer's fridge and a Cocoa Five and some cool brands, especially in like sort of the entrepreneurial community in Chicago, and bring them in and sell them a fantastic PR plan, but ultimately it didn't work within the tax system that is a holding company, and they
right,
didn't really need all the other stuff of a holding company either, right? They were never going to tap into all the big data at that stage. So I started talking to a friend about, gosh, it seems like there should be a way that we could do that. And at the same time, so much great talent that I had known and worked with and partnered with over the years at different agencies were starting to get let go. And then the pandemic hit, and I kept thinking about all these names I would see of people leaving. And it just seemed like if I am going to have to sit on my couch and work for the rest of my life, and we're not going to go back, and I know a lot of talent that would trust me for opportunities. And I can go run a financial model that allows me to lean into tomorrow's brands and things that we believe in. There has to be something here. So, two very good friends, women with different experience bases than mine, different skill sets, we sort of agreed to start Scratch. A great creative friend, Charlie Wickman, came up with a load of names for us, as great creatives do. And we chose the Scratch Collective. Sort of when things are started from the stuff that started from scratch is always the best. I
yeah,
love to cook and bake. That's all the best stuff. But also that we wanted to make money for ourselves. And that's another term for scratch, right? Is the money. And then the collective in our name is about this great group of talent that we can attract who want to work on a project basis. Maybe Scratch is part of their home, but they can work elsewhere. And that talent base is just continuing to grow. I talk to people all the time and bring in talent that we know or know of and put them on client projects. So, it was a really big step to I'd always been in a tall building. I'd always had a 401k. I always had a nice title and a business card, and to leave all of that and a lot of my identity behind and start my own thing was the biggest adult decision I had made, maybe having kids. But it was such a big moment, and I didn't have to leave, but I felt like I should.
Mhm.
I'm a one of the my husband and I were the breadwinners. It was a big financial risk, but I left and had 2 clients set up, and 5.5 years later, it's the best decision I made.
You're thriving.
Love it.
And you said you had to kind of let go of an identity
Yeah.
to be able what did you have to let go of, and then what did you end up claiming in
Mm,
this
such a good
big
question.
shift?
Yeah, I think a lot of my identity was, being at the agency, running a team, working on these brands, being, very connected in the industry, you know, going to New York and seeing all the reporters. I mean, it was just, the ecosystem of having grown up at big agencies and knowing that I had a place there and I had a reputation there and, the safety net of that and that there's going to be a job next year and a lot of that has changed, but it's who I was. When I worked at DDB, I was DDB. I was the spokesperson. I felt like I was an embodiment. When Leo Burnett, like I felt like it was my responsibility, that brand. And so to leave that for something no one's ever heard of, and again, sit on my couch in COVID and try to build a business with a logo and 2 friends, it was really scary. And I think the timing and the positioning just worked, and we got really lucky, and we were taken care of by a lot of great contacts we'd made over our careers.
What is it like the biggest fear you had to overcome to be able to to take this leap?
I think it's that believing in yourself. I
Mm.
think I've always had a lot of confidence, but that confidence was because of the system around me, the people around me, the brand names, and just having faith that that would apply outside of Adland, that I could go get clients who had never heard of or cared about the agencies I worked at. And then also, like, having a faith that there things were changing and things were coming that were different, and that was a gamble, but, I could kinda see it coming. So many consolidations, so many changes in the business, so many clients cutting back their budgets, right? And
Mhm.
so they, pre-AI, but the change was coming, that they could get things cheaper, easier, faster, and that not everybody needed a big agency. So I think it was those 2 things, getting over the fears of them, and then realizing that it was a time in my life to make a leap. I was so much more present with my kids. I wasn't gone downtown 10 hours a day, and
Yeah.
they were at an age where that was, like, so lovely. We're trying to do at-home school, and I'm actually here, and I can decide the meetings and the times, and that's been probably the greatest gift, is how present I was able to be when at a time when they'll remember it. They were old enough to remember it.
And correct me where I'm wrong, because it's been,
A minute.
many years. But when we were working together, I remember we identified a value that was really being dishonored in the current working, and then what was starting your own business would allow. Was that value freedom? Do you remember that? Does that sound right?
100%.
Like, because as you just said that, you were like, being able to make things on my own schedule, be with my kids, it kind of brought that back to me. Is
Totally.
that something that you still value, and how has this allowed you to live your life in alignment with that value?
Yeah, I think I didn't even know you could have it. I didn't know
Mm,
I didn't know that people had, their own business. I didn't really know anybody who successfully had their own business with big meaningful clients. And I didn't know that I could still be that successful working mom and make the lunch and do the pickup. That had never been really presented to me. It was, you stayed late in the office and that proved that you were all in. And when everybody got sent home, that changed, and I started to see, and first of all, my kids really did need me to help with, online schooling, but also just making all the decisions and becoming a sourdough bread maker because I could, you know, taunt that dough every half an hour, or just deciding that I am gonna be in that pickup line, and I always felt too guilty to do it. That has been a huge gift the past 5.5 years, to have that freedom, and a lot of people got it. Like, people work from home and, the work is forever changed. I think it would have changed for me anyway, but the other thing now is I get to give that gift to a lot of people who have young kids at home or who want to work in a different hybrid environment or really want to be. I mean, we've got great people who they just want to work like 25, 30 hours a week,
Yeah.
right? That's their full time. And we can provide that. And they don't have to, they don't have to get up for 7 a.m. meetings and they can have control. So I have not only freedom, I think I have control and I
Yeah.
can enable others to have control.
Yeah. What I hear in that and what think is so true is that we're kind of sold one story. And it's kind of one of like, you have to build your life around this thing. You can't necessarily build your life in alignment with this thing. Like, you don't have a lot of agency. You kind of just have to make it work and you
Yes,
have to sacrifice a lot. And I think there's a lot of, especially in the industry we come from, I think there's a lot of almost like pride in sacrificing life for
yeah,
work, or there's like a lot of like, that's part of the job. And the more you do it, the more you care, or something like that.
exactly.
But the reality is, and I've learned this too for myself, I think is very similar in that way. And I craved greater freedom too, was that you really do have agency. And that if you want to have your life look a certain way, that it's possible to create that, but you have to believe in yourself. And I think there's another part to that, which allowed you to be really successful, that also, because of people like you, allowed for me to get my business off the ground, which is kind of building that currency and knowing how to leverage and nurture really meaningful relationships. So when you take a risk like this and you want to move everything around, the system is there to support you.
Yeah.
What did
Well,
that look like for you?
yeah, I mean, I absolutely. I mean, it was great to see you do it. It's been great to see so many people be able to pivot. And I think when you get out of your industry or your little network, you can sometimes almost realize your value in an exponential way. I thought that
Yeah.
I had to be in Chicago or New York working for an agency. And, I see people do this in their 20s, 30s, 40s. You can make that pivot and your value actually carries, but it's hard to have the confidence of that.
Yeah.
For me to now be engaged with entrepreneurs and startups and people in small markets and people in Silicon Valley who don't know anything about advertising or what I used to do, but what is your core competency? What do you provide? Be super clear on that and let it travel and inform a whole different agency, a whole different industry, all different kinds of people. That's been really rewarding and maybe so much more validating than showing up in the same circles I've been in, is that what you learn can actually have broader meaning. So
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of, people, and I love to talk about the pivot. I think, I didn't make a giant pivot. I'm still doing communications, but at the time it felt like a really big pivot. You made a really big pivot. And I just feel that people, if they have that in them and they get the encouragement to do it, I think it's so much more satisfying than being sure you have to stay in the same place.
Yeah. I also, because it is, and I've talked about this, you're just so talking about your moment, but like, it really truly is about how to, if you have the craving for that, like hunger, like, you're meant for something different or more, which is kind of how I felt. Like, I just knew that there was just something out there that would allow me to be able to share what I thought were my true gifts more, or have greater impact. But if you have that calling, that it's all about like letting go of that fear and believing in the possibility. And as you said, believing in yourself. And but I wanna go back to this idea of, like, the nurturing relationships, because I think even more as we get into this world of AI and online, and I think
Yeah.
connection often gets fractured and isn't happening in the same way or as meaningfully as before. But I think it is so critical, especially if you want to do something like we did, but I think in general,
Yeah.
that you are a master at building meaningful relationships. Like, I see the people that you surround yourself with. I see what you how you nurtured our relationships and how you supported me, and I know I'm one of many and many and many people. So, what have been like your philosophy when it comes to nurturing these really beautiful relationships and connections over the years?
Yeah. I think it's just kind of who I am. I'm a extreme extrovert. I get all of my energy from others, and it's fueled my career and my life. And so, you get to a stage where right now it is less about me and my career. I'm kind of set and I'm good. And I think seeing the people like you and Lindsay and Drew and Eileen and Isabel and the people that more sort of worked for me. We worked
Mhm.
together, but like that they're the next gen. Seeing them be able to make their pivots or cheer them into, you can do that big job. I know you've got that other big job in you. That is so much more rewarding than almost anything. And I think it's a Midwestern thing a little bit that I just love to stay in touch with people and I love to hear how they are and champion them. And I think starting off in Adland really like built that in me because that's how that small little incestuous industry is. And no, I'm maternal. I've got 3 kids and I think that I bring that into a lot of my work situations. That's what's gonna be left when I retire and I'll become a professional pickleball player. That's not gonna happen.
You
What
never
what
know.
will be what'll be left out there are all of the people that hopefully I got to work with and I think are way more amazing than I am, and that I got to have a little part in that, and, um, you know, be proud of what we built together over time is the whole legacy thing. I do a lot of
Yeah.
executive coaching or coaching. I do a lot of executive brand work for women executives. And everybody loves and shudders at that question that I ask is like, what do you want your legacy to be? And I think for me, and they always say, well, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. What's yours? And I think it's all just about the people that I got to work with and that if, that I was hopefully sometimes a good boss and that I carried them along and they carried me and that made everything worthwhile.
Yeah, it's so funny 'cause that's exactly what I was gonna ask you. What do you want your legacy to be? And how much do you think being in connection to that drives the way that you move through your life and business?
Yeah, I mean, I kinda think it's again, I think 10 years ago, I probably wasn't thinking about it as much. I think about it a lot. Again, as I see these people come up and the big jobs that people can get and that they're thriving and they're pushing themselves, that makes me happy. I think I also spend a lot of time thinking about this next generation of people coming up. I have a daughter who's studying marketing, at Ohio State. I have a daughter who's going into Wisconsin to be a journalist, and I think about the different kind of hiring world and work world that they're going to hit a lot. I
Yeah.
talk to tons of college graduate I mean, I'm talking to, like, a college graduate almost every day, just trying to help people navigate and figure out, like, how would I break in the Chicago market, or how do I do that, or why is nobody picking up my resume? And so I feel very in touch with how hard it is for everybody, and I'm very worried about the elimination of all these roles that trained people like you and me,
Yep.
right? I came in and I was a double AE, and then the AEs taught me, and then I was an SAE, and then the account soups taught me, and as all of that is changing, I do worry about not only who is Scratch gonna be able to hire in the coming years, but also this next generation of kids that, I see and I worry about, and I hope that they can have what I had, which was a tremendous start, tremendous mentorship, all the chances in the world, travel. I became who I am because largely of my career. And so, that's the
Mhm.
stuff that I think about when I think about legacy is how do I also help that along a bit?
Oh, that's beautiful. And those folks need people like you thinking about that because I think a lot of people aren't. But that is such a truth. And for those that are maybe listening that are struggling right now of how to navigate the current job market, how to think about their future in this industry, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah. I mean, I think that so much of it is your network. And so when, somebody is 22 and they have sent me a very pointed email. I've got connected to you by so and so. This is what I want to do. Real clarity about how I can help them. Then we
Mhm.
get on a call and they are clear about what they need and they have a strong ask. I say, don't ask anybody for a job. Ask
Mm.
who are 2 people that you could introduce me to help me get to that job. Right? It's like it is just
Right.
the expanding network and real clarity. When people say, "Well, I want to do something in communications," I say, "Okay, well, you need to go do a little homework to say I want to do one of these things because these are my skill sets." When people used to say to me, "I want to be in PR because I like people," I'm like, "Well, nope. Nope. It's got, you need to be in PR because you're obsessed with culture. You love to read the news. You care about and understand the intersection of brands in our world. And so I think really kind of doing your homework and getting clear about some of the ways that you could work. And then the other side of that is also being super clear that you may not start exactly where you want to. In this job market, you may have to start with something else, but every job can teach you something to make you more employable and more relevant in the future. So if it is that you're a waitress this summer and you don't get your dream job at Nike, there is stuff that you are going to learn that is going to make you better in the interview and make you better when you get that job. And so it is a little bit, um, having some realism about what this job market is, and then just being scrappy as hell and working like hell and networking like hell because that's how a lot of these jobs are going to happen.
Yeah, and okay, brilliant. These folks are so lucky because that's brilliant, brilliant advice. I think a couple of things I hear in that is one, it's all about how to seize every opportunity and not seeing like because it's not what I expected, it's something else. There's not something for me in it. It's like, yes, there is. Like this is not related, but a little bit related. When I started working at the coffee shop because I wanted to work at a coffee shop,
Love it.
I didn't expect that I would get brilliant other lessons in leadership that would help with my coaching, help with my business, right? Like I didn't expect that, but it ended up
Hmm.
teaching me more than I could have imagined. And it's opened up so many other aspects that I didn't expect in my career, in my life, in my community, all of that.
Hmm.
But you have to remain open minded to that to be able to see it, or else it's just going to go right past you and you'll miss it. And you're just going to take it for face value. The other thing is it goes back to relationships, networking, how to properly nurture meaningful relationships and connections and to respect those connections. So I didn't expect to ask this question, but I'm actually very curious. So you're talking to all of these people of varying ages and education and experience, all of that. What do the people do that are most memorable or that you want to invest in? What do they do differently than others?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I've been thinking about it because there's a couple of young women that, I mean, it's been like 2 years. Like they might have been like a sophomore, early junior year, and they started, my mom's friend said that maybe you talk to me kind of thing, and they
Hmm.
just update me
Mm.
every 6 months. Like, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I know it's a long time. And so there's a young woman now, super impressive, who, she's been checking in with me. She studied abroad. She explained to me why her study abroad was actually relevant and not just like, going to check out cafes.
Yeah.
And now I think she might get a couple of projects from scratch this summer as she's looking for her job because I've
Cool.
just seen like the tenacity and the follow-up, really smart follow-up letters. PR and comms people were snobs about writing. I don't want to see AI slop, and I want them to be tailored. I want you to have a clear ask. And when people demonstrate that, that's the kind of person that I want to hire. I'm not hiring a salesperson, but I do think so much of the comms PR ad landscape is that sales mindset of, smart follow up, not naggy, smart follow up, consistent. When would be a good time to talk? Here is examples of things that I have done. Here's how I think I've grown my capabilities to be more marketable. Let me know what you think. Those people who follow up and are tenacious in the kindest way
Yeah.
really, really break through.
Okay. There's something I want to underscore about that is, as you said, the follow up. I think a lot of people tell themselves stories that, like, oh, they won't care. They don't want to hear from me. I don't want to bother them. And so they often won't continue to nurture a connection with somebody who's more senior or
Yeah.
experienced or someone they really, really respect out of that. But the reality is, and what I hear you're saying is like, no, actually, people want to know the impact that they're having in your life. They want to know how you're doing, but make it intentional. And it's not about you, it's about both of you and your experience, your work. How did your conversation or what they shared impact what you're doing? And how do you share things that could show, like you said, show your growth? Because you never know what opportunity could come from it.
100%. I mean, I say to people, people that I get closer to, and, not just one phone call, but it's like, I'm on your team. You're going to call me in 5 years and I'm going to help you with somebody I know because that's what
Yeah.
people did for me. I was in Ohio trying to break into the Chicago market, and I remember the ways that people did that for me and got me a start. And, it is a tough world out there. And especially with what I do, the people that can figure out how to well communicate to get the job are going to do a job with great communications once they get hired. So, not everybody really wants to be followed up with. I will have to say, but I think if someone really says, no, I'm here to help you,
Mhm.
you got to take them up on that. And then LinkedIn also provides such an amazing way for people to stay engaged. So when I see a student or somebody that I've talked to or somebody I used to work with post about what they're doing, commenting and engaging and them reminding them that I'm cheering for them. And when I see people comment and share my stuff, oh, right. Nina, I remember Nina. Gosh, you know what? We do need a designer. I wonder if I could follow up with Nina. So, I spend a lot of time on training and optimizing LinkedIn for leaders and businesses, and I do think that when you're in your job search, making sure that you're squeezing everything out of that, not on it so much that you look like you don't have a job, but really intelligent engagement and using it as your news feed to see what's going on in the industries and with the people that you want to land a job with is really, really important.
And one last question I wanna ask your, like, expertise about, and then I wanna pivot back to some of your leadership lessons. But what are the tips for people who are trying to own their story in either making connections or trying to get a job or telling their story to be more attractive to hiring to companies? Like, what do the individuals need to know about owning and their story and storytelling in general?
Yeah, of course. It's so important. I think that a lot of the skills and lessons of brand storytelling, we're now using to help executives tell their story. And I always say people by people. The Lindsay story is so much more interesting than the company story, meaning people
Mhm.
really want to lean in and understand. So having your clear narrative is really important whether you're in a job search or not. And a couple of things that we talk about with that work is kind of identifying your superpower. What are you actually better at than everybody else? What's that thing that makes the work that you can do actually like sing? What do people say, gosh, if we hadn't had Lindsay in the room, the way she delivered that, what is that thing that is special? And sometimes you can't identify it yourself. You need people around you to identify. But if you can identify that superpower, it helps create that narrative in a way that is sticky. And then we always make a message house for a person or a brand. And you and I worked on some of that stuff in our past. But for personal brand, I always like it's three things. It's not a massive message house. It's this nice small tight bungalow, and it has three things that you always say and stand for. And if you're trying to get across that I'm good at I'm like, I'm good at this, I can do this, and this is how I deliver it. If you keep saying those three things, just like any political candidate, when you get tired of saying it, then trust me, your audiences are going to start to understand it. So
Yeah.
trying to have a little bit of like rigor and clarity, writing down these things, and then am I expressing that through LinkedIn? Am I mentioning these things when I am networking and I'm following up with people? What can I be counted on for? And I think if that's clear, it's so much easier for people to hire you, lean into you, ask you to be on a panel, ask you to be on a podcast. And we also say, like, if you're not telling your story, then people think there's no story to be told.
Mm.
So if you are in the job market or if you are trying to build a client base or whatever, if you're just ignoring it, then you're going to be ignored. Say what you want about LinkedIn, it is still top in search. It is still how people are finding so many people, and it is still your place to name your story and continue to build it.
Yeah, wow, if you're not that's like if you're not telling the story, then they think that there's no story to be heard.
Yep.
And I think there's also it takes a lot of, I think, self-trust and courage and confidence to really, like, own your story.
Yeah.
And I think that's what stops people is I think often when we look at ourselves, we don't it's hard to identify that superpower, and I think
Yeah.
especially for women, and they
Yes.
need mentors and coaches and supporters like you to say, "No, no, no, no. Of course you have something really unique and special. Like, of course you have a superpower, and the more you can see it, identify it, and own it, the more that other people are gonna see it too."
Yep.
And I was just talking to a prospective client earlier this week, and they're saying how they wanna feel in demand in their job, and they want this life, and they feel so stuck, but then people tell them, "Oh, yeah, like, you're so incredible at this." Like, they're giving them all these compliments and seeing their value, and they were just like, "But I hear that, and I don't think any of that is true." It's like, no one is going to believe in
You don't.
your if you're in your value and like you're not, they're not going to want like go craving looking for you if you aren't seeing that in for yourself. So that's the work to be done. That's where it starts is how do you believe in yourself, own your story, own that superpower fully. And then other people are just going to be like so attracted to that, like a magnet.
And the other thing that's also true, Lindsay, and good counsel. It's the other thing that's really important in how we look at this work too is not just what's your story, but what's going on out in the world? What's the cultural context, the cultural fuel, the
Yeah.
industry reality that makes it matter? So you could be all of this, but if what you really need to find is what's happening in the world, what people are talking about, what conversations you can enter because of that, not just talking about yourself. So it really is important
Yeah.
to name not only the superpower, but name what is the context and why does it matter?
Yeah. Why should people care? How do you
Yeah,
connect yourself to what other people are talking about or what they're looking for, the problems that they're trying to solve?
exactly. And then
Yeah.
together, I think all those pieces get you to, okay, so this is how I talk about my personal brand. And then when you go into that interview, they've already been able to kind of see it. They know you, and then you can build that conversation from there versus kind of always having to introduce yourself. You can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it for free right on the internet.
Right on the internet.
Right on the internet.
Um, Now, before I wrap us, I just want to pick your leadership brain a little bit. And I'm curious if you had to kind of identify or name like your leadership philosophy, what would it be?
Yeah, it's funny. I think it's changed over the years from being in a big agency to running my own thing with my partners. I think I've always been people first. I would say like nobody's going to remember the press release or the project or what the heck we did that color year of the KitchenAid mixer. But you remember how people made you feel. That's what you remember. And I think that I learned that very on from some great mentors and probably some not so great bosses, but also some great bosses. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it is the feeling. Leadership is just like any other relationship. It's a work one, and the way you make people feel is so important. And I think I've also been like kind but direct. And Brene Brown,
Clear
clear
but
but kind.
kind. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and, um, I think a lot of people were doing it before Brene said it, but I appreciate Brene making it sort of mainstream. I'm very always in touch with people's feelings. I care a lot about how people are feeling, but I also know that my directness often, especially with clients and on behalf of other people, is really helpful in the room and in situations. So I had some great people who trusted me early and let me kind of probably have jobs bigger than I was ready for. And I had to speak up. And usually, because I wasn't talking about like space science, they believed me. And I grew confidence that they would believe me if I have an informed opinion. And I think that directness worked well for me and continues to. And I love to see when especially women can have that strong voice, that clarity of purpose, that assuredness, I think is incredibly attractive. And what I mean by that is like that's what people are drawn to from a leader. They want somebody to tell them how it should go and then let them go do it their way. And so that's
Yeah.
what I look for in a leader and what I try to do.
Yeah. And yeah, the clearest kind is so important because it's, there's such a difference with someone who is direct, but it's coming from a place of compassion. It comes from a place of, I truly actually care about you. I care about your business. I care about your work. I care about your career. Is very different than I'm just going to say the things no one's saying, but I'm saying it because I think it's for the shock factor or because it just needs to be said, but I'm not really
Yeah,
caring about the people or the impact of my words. But you are somebody who balances that so beautifully that you can say, I can show how you can be direct, say the hard thing, but it's coming from a place of truly caring. And it makes the intent, right? The intent is what makes the difference there.
absolutely. And none of it's ever perfect, right? We've all had
No.
moments when it doesn't work and direct is hard and we get scared about those conversations, difficult conversations, those are hard for every leader. But I do think that in presenting, I've been working with somebody on presenting skills. All that just gets easier with repetition. And so
Yeah.
the more you have difficult conversations, the easier they get. The more you present, the easier they get. And we need more in person, and we need more mentorship so people get more opportunities to exercise those muscles
Yeah.
and get to their strong leadership stance and their ability to put that into a room and feel really confident and live into all their potential.
I think there's 2 things I wanna to talk about that I think are so important. The one is I think so often people think the confidence like, I have to be confident and then I'll be ready, and it's like, actually, you need to first be courageous and do the thing, and the confidence comes. Like, I heard you say that, and, like, people put me in rooms where I had to really speak up, and the more that they trusted you and you realize you kinda owned your voice, and then it just kinda became part of your leadership stance, like you said. So I think that's important is remembering, like, you gotta do the thing for the confidence to come. It doesn't just happen one day. So
Yep.
you have to take the risk and be
No pill.
uncomfortable.
There is no pill. You got to
There's
just
no
do it.
pill. Exactly. And I think the second thing what you're talking about is that having someone believe in you makes
Mm.
such a big difference. Like somebody who's mentoring you or deciding to sponsor you at a company or a manager who really supports your growth and they're putting you in these rooms and these spaces, these opportunities, but they're saying you are ready for this. I believe in you. I'm going to help you. I'm let you do your thing, but also I'm here for you if it doesn't go well or it does go well. Like then people are kind of taking these leaps and putting in these tough situations, but they feel like they have someone in their corner while doing it. And I think that
And
makes
and
all the
every
difference.
100%, and everybody could name who those people are. You will never forget the leaders
Yeah.
who put you out there and you knew that they thought you were ready before you did. And I would also like challenge everybody to go thank them now before it's too late. Like I think that I've written letters and just let people know the impact that they had. And when you write that too, you'll understand and you'll filter, am I having that impact on people?
Yep.
And I think, again, I think that's the whole game, but you'll never forget those people that, made you courageous enough to make that leap or made you go in the room and be your best self. And you want to make sure that in your career that you get to do both. You get to be the one who's pushed out there before you're ready, and then you push somebody out there before they're ready and they'll deliver. Again, I was said like we are not saving lives. This is not for people who are doing heart surgery. For the most part, this is stuff that can be learned, and it's people skills, and go and have the confidence and trust yourself, and you'll be surprised. I always was, and built a career on that.
There's something so beautiful about, you know, making sure you're putting yourself in positions and nurturing the relationships with mentors that push you out, like you said, managers who push you out when you're before you're ready, but then you also are doing that for others. And to thank them and make sure they know that they had that impact, which is full circle back to the beginning of our conversation. You were one of those people for me. Whether the way you believed in me and supported me in some really crazy client situations in KitchenAid, but also believing and kind of pushing me as a coach to support you in such a pivotal moment. So I want to make sure reiterate again the impact that you've had on me.
I do. You've been incredibly vocal about that, and it's meant a lot. And
Mm.
I know you bring that into everybody that you coach, and that's a big part of coaching. So, and now you're telling everybody on the podcast. So you're doing it.
Continue making it happen. My last closing question for you is what is the leadership lesson that you feel like that keeps returning that you have to keep learning over and over again? Like the universe wants to make sure you don't forget.
Yeah. One important leadership lesson is that as you move up, you have to stay as hungry for
Hmm.
learning as when you started. So, in the worlds that I grew up in PR and advertising, it was you had to be obsessed with not only what was happening in the industry, but you had to be obsessed with culture and how culture was moving. And so I just grew up on that, reading endless news, getting 6 papers delivered, really just taking in all the media and taking on what's happening in the world, because the job then is to put a brand or a person or a position into that news cycle. And I saw a lot of people as I came up have that hunger in their 20s, but then kind of like sublet it to others as they went up. And I think I even went through a period where I was a little less like that. And then I think I missed it intellectually, and I think there were a couple times where I wasn't as good for the client because I wasn't as obsessed. So, I think being a leader is demonstrating every day how you want everybody around you to
Mm,
be on their best day, and we don't all have our best days. But specifically, if you work in the worlds of marketing and news and PR and social media, just being really obsessed with understanding all sides and how information moves and just being a student. And it's one of the things I love about having an agency and working in agency is there's all different kinds of categories. And I love having to all of a sudden learn about agriculture and crops and just having that mindset that I'm constantly a student and that I get to be a student and bring my fresh perspective and to a client. Like if I can understand it and if I can distill this down, you're very, your deep tech. If I can understand it, you're going to be able to explain it to the rest of the world is just, I think, a really important thing that leaders hold on to and that everybody who wants to work in the ecosystem does.
yeah, and one thing you said was, like, making sure that you are modeling how you want people to show up every day,
Yeah.
on your best days. I
Yeah.
think that is so important, and I think leaders I don't think they necessarily forget that, like, people are watching and their actions matter, but I think what happens is that people lose touch with what does that actually mean for them, whether it's your values, your guiding principles, your purpose, that you're able to remind yourself and own to keep yourself accountable, so you're constantly sending a consistent message to those around you on your team. Because I think sometimes the consistency isn't there, and then they don't know what do we stand for? What are the values that I need to be modeling or I need to be doing, um, to show up in the way that's meaningful for this company and this work?
Well, and talking to a lot of leaders in different categories too, it's staying in the work. I think once you become a leader, I mean, you can sit in finance meetings all day or in, issues and crisis meetings all day, but then you kind of get out of what is it that why are we actually here? And I
Yeah,
saw that with myself. I was in, it was just endless meetings about what the meetings were looking like. And I
yes,
think the gift of being back is like I'm with the clients, I'm back in the work and making sure that as a leader, you can manage all of that and you need to deputize people and you know, you can't over program who's in charge, but if you stay in close to the work, I think it's better for the work and I think you're a better leader,
yeah,
than just getting up into, you know, the future state is being in the work. And I just think it's also it's so much more energizing and stimulating. Um, at least it is for me.
yeah, and I think there's a difference between being in the work and doing the work. And I think
Yes.
that's often where leaders, as they get more senior, don't really see the difference or struggle with that difference of letting go. It's like, you don't need to do the work. It's like you said, like set the way and let the people go off and do it. But being in the work means connected to the work, guiding the people, continuing to model how we handle this business, how we handle this work, how to show up, but letting them continue to actually do the work.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how we all got started, and again,
Hmm.
that's what you'll remember is
Yeah.
like I had hands on that thing,
Hmm.
not I sat in the corporate meeting. They're important. They shouldn't overtake the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And wow, Amy, this has been like such a masterclass in leadership and storytelling and navigating the market today and mentorship and building relationships. And like, I feel like we covered such a wide range of really meaningful, important things that folks need to hear today. And I just
Oh,
want to thank you so much for getting unfiltered with me. Your
thank
time
you.
is so valuable. And
Thank
I
you.
want to thank you so much for giving me so much of it, for being so generous.
I loved it. Thanks for having these important conversations and getting good people that can share so we all keep learning, and I'm super proud of you and all you're doing, and it was a great hour. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in and for getting
Hey.
unfiltered with us today.
Okay. Take care.